When I left legacy media after nearly 2 decades as a reporter and then a lead evening news anchor, I left to return to the tenets of journalism that had been abandoned. Among them, to hold those in power accountable and be a voice for the voiceless. RFK Jr.'s voice as a presidential candidate has been effectively muted. Therefore, I'm dedicating most of today's show to elevating his voice, his policies, and an effort to bring balance back and fairness back to the media. The news you need to know, but with solutions and hope. This is Get Free with KRISTI Lee. All right, coming up, we've got free speech advocate and Trump turned RFK Jr. supporter, Pickaxe CEO Jeff Dornick with us, as well as the RFK Jr. tour bus captain and surprisingly Justin Trudeau's brother, Kyle Kemper. But first, we have a new orange man, Pat. An orange hued Joe Biden. He delivered a speech last night for the first time since the nation heard about his decision to drop out of the presidential race. And it was interesting to say the least. He looked confused, as I said, orange, and the whole speech seemed to only deepen Americans' concern surrounding what is going on and the Democratic Party's decision to suddenly prop up Kamala Harris. Take a look.
To tell you the truth, and the truth, the sacred cause of this country is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause cherish it so much. A cause of American democracy itself must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
Yes, what a way to save democracy. I thought that was the point, that was the focus. Most would say there's nothing that feels democratic about the coup we're witnessing, the blatant attempts to completely ignore the votes of millions of people and not give them a voice about who to replace their nominee with. The regime wants us to somehow believe that subverting voters is protecting democracy. That's right. The Democrats have taken it upon themselves to coronate their very own queen. According to Bloomberg, quote, a panel of Democratic stalwarts will meet Wednesday to complete a rule change to allow Vice President Kamala Harris to accept her party's nomination for president weeks in advance of the party's convention in Chicago. This is the kind of politics that constitutes a banana republic, and even Black Lives Matter can see it. The official BLM account posted on X, quote, the American people will not get a chance to vote for the Democratic nominee and their VP. DNC party bosses will vote instead of the American people. While a virtual primary for the American people isn't possible, we will make it possible for DNC party bosses to vote virtually. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But none of that even really matters because nearly 2,000 DNC party bosses have already told the Associated Press that they're committed to Kamala Harris and her unknown VP as the Democratic nominee. So Harris has already won the open, fair, inclusive, and transparent process, which is really just for show. Again, that's all from Black Lives Matter. They even came out with an official statement on the matter, and there was a particularly interesting sentence in there. It says, historically, Black people have been they've been loyal Democratic voters. But time and again, the party has taken our votes for granted and prioritized political theatrics over our real needs. I hope they begin to recognize that more because, again, you have been loyal for 50 plus years. And what do you have to show for it? What do you have to show for it? You know it's bad when a Black female candidate isn't receiving the support of a pro-Black organization. The corruption is just too obvious to ignore. And it gets worse. You're probably old enough to remember 3 years ago when Kamala Harris was given the title border czar by the Biden regime. But since the regime's border policy has been such an abysmal failure, I guess no one wants to take the blame. So instead of owning up to it, the Democrats and the media are doing what they do best, gaslighting the public. They're now attempting to save face on behalf of Kamala by claiming she never actually was the border czar. Only problem is we have the receipts. Watch.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
And that's not all. Axios attempted to run cover for Harris on X, only to be fact-checked by Community Notes. Linked below Axios' article are the several other articles where Axios itself personally referred to her as the border czar. She was so bad at the job that she wants us all to forget it was even her job to begin with. And I mean, let me just point this out. Why are you so desperate to gaslight the people that she was, whether you want to call it border czar, if we want to play with semantics, or whether that she was charged with the root causes of migration? Why are you so desperate to hide that if you're proud of what's been going on at the border? It's so obvious. They're not proud of what's going on at the border. Everyone has seen what has happened at the border and what that's caused. And so now they want us to forget and distance themselves from any responsibility for what has happened at the border. I mean, that, we're going to talk about root causes. That's the root cause of this gaslighting. But thankfully, the House won't let that happen. The House just passed a resolution to consider condemning President Joe Biden's administration and Vice President Kamala Harris for their failure to secure the United States border. She can't rewrite history. We all remember her incompetence as the border czar, the root cause immigration manager, whatever you want to call it. She was incompetent overall. She has nothing to show for any of that. And not just as that position, but also as senator. Now that she is about to be coronated by the Democratic Party, they want us to conveniently forget what a radical leftist she is. As N Wokeness pointed out on X, GovTrack just deleted their 2019 page. This is supposed to be a bipartisan website as well, but they went ahead and deleted their 2019 page that ranked Kamala Harris as the most liberal of all 100 senators. Actually, not even bipartisan. That's supposed to be a nonpartisan website. Yet, why did they delete that? Nice try, but it's 2024. We have that amazing tool called the internet. We're able to show you what they tried to hide. For better or for worse, you can't really hide anything for long before the truth comes out. Now, meanwhile, the hypocrisy continues from the left. Pro-Palestinian protesters took to the Capitol to burn American flags yesterday. Take a look. Now, as disgusting and un-American as that is, it's not even the worst part. The worst part is that they'll seriously sit here and tell us flag burning is protected free speech, but that somehow leaving tire marks on an LGBTQ flag is a hate crime. At least be consistent, but even that's too much to ask. Now, while Democrats continue to mock Trump getting shot at, and if it was bullet or was it shrapnel, they take a dump on the man that lost his life that day from the bullets, Corey Competore. and there were others injured. But for my good news today, the Marine vet who was shot at the Trump rally has been released from the hospital, according to the New York Post. David Dutch was discharged following an 11-day stay after he was shot at the outdoor rally. He was struck twice, once in the chest and once in the liver, when 20-year-old gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks began shooting from a nearby rooftop in an assassination attempt on Trump. Now, I should probably say when allegedly 20-year-old gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks began shooting, because, there's still plenty of unanswered questions. We don't even know, they won't even confirm completely that he was the lone shooter. We don't have the bullet casings. Lots of questions there. Now, I would love to bring you even more good news about, things like that the man injured has made it out of the hospital, things like that. But I need your help. Join my editorial board. Send me something positive, inspiration, something to make us laugh. You can send that to klgetgoodnews@gmail.com, klgetgoodnews@gmail.com. Help me spread some good stuff to talk about. Up next, we're talking RFK Jr. with former Trump supporter Jeff Dornick. One of the reasons he's all in on RFK Jr. is he feels the Kennedy-Shanahan ticket will be tougher on corporate capture and allowing medical health freedom. RFK Jr. VP candidate Nicole Shanahan just shared this on X. She said Nourish Co-op was mandated by the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development to destroy all of their raw dairy products after receiving a cease and desist order from the state. And, there's a video there where she goes on to explain, Ashley Armstrong goes on to explain how it's government overreach, how government's getting it wrong. She explains how healthy raw milk is and how they're just trying to destroy our access to other natural, healthy food. I'm a lucky one that can go to the farmer's market and still get pretty much every week raw goat's milk, feed it to my baby, and plenty of other natural food. But not everybody has that benefit, and they're coming down on this hard. So we're going to be talking more about that as well with Jeff in a moment. But let that serve as a reminder to make sure you're stocked up on healthy food while you can. One way you can do that and also be prepared for anything is by supporting a veteran-owned ranch. Preppers All Natural. They make available premium cuts of beef that are free from any of those jabs, if you will. And so you can stock up on these. They're freeze dried, so it's not like crumbles or beef jerky or anything. You can go to klbeef.com to stock up. Watch this.
Let them eat bugs, they say, or lab-grown meat, or worse. No, we want our real beef. And we need to get free from the rising costs because the prices are skyrocketing. So you need to go to klbeef.com, stock up on all American beef from ranches in Texas, from Prepper All Naturals. We don't want the mystery meat. This meat is no mRNA jabs ever. It's freeze-dried, stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for maximum shelf life. We're talking 10 plus years without refrigeration. We're not talking jerky. We're talking about something you can just soak in water for 15 minutes, ready to eat. And these are premium cuts, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, chuck. Just use promo code KLB15 for 15% off your order.
Now, I want to play a clip of RFK Jr. and his opinion on Kamala being propped up as the new candidate. Watch.
She's a war hawk. The Democratic Party was always the peace party. Kamala Harris is a war hawk on Ukraine. She's a war hawk on China. I think that we should be figuring out ways to coexist with the rest of the world as best we can. Of course, we need to protect our national security. I think she's not going to do anything about the national deficit. I've never heard her speak about the chronic disease epidemic, I think she's a product of the corporate control of our democracy. And she's one of the authors of, in terms of civil rights, she has one of the worst civil rights record of any public official. She's the author of one of the primary authors of the school to prison pipeline. She kept 5,000 people, despite a Supreme Court order that she released 5,000 prisoners of nonviolent drug crimes who were illegally in California jails. She kept them in there saying that we needed them for firefighting and for other public work services. And that's just a modern version of indentured servitude.
Now, here to discuss is Jeff Dornick. He's the co-founder and CEO of Pickaxe, a new social content platform dedicated to preserving all constitutionally protected speech without being beholden to big tech. Also the host of the Jeff Dornick Show and several others. Thank you so much for coming on with me, Jeff.
Of course. Thank you, Kristi. It's always a blast talking to you.
Yeah, I love your story, and I'm in agreement with most things that you post, including, we had RFK Jr. There giving his opinion on Kamala, and he was sticking to policy, and you're not seeing that from a lot of Trump supporters. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say that Trump necessarily condones that, but I am seeing far too much things that are just unnecessary, and insulting her on gender, insulting her on her past sexcapades, we'll say. And to me, it's just so ridiculous because I'm like, okay, what president have we had that hasn't had some kind of scandal when it comes to that area? So let's not target her just because she's a woman. But I saw you were posting some of those same thoughts.
No, yeah, I'm in total agreement. Like for me, I've had this frustration for a very long time, as I feel like we need to be talking about the actual issues that we're facing right now. And that to me was what really drew me to Donald Trump back in 2015 and 2016. Is when he came down the escalator, he gave that first speech and he laid out a lot of the issues that a lot of us were begging our politicians to actually confront. Like, okay, how are we actually going to shut down the border and deal with the illegal immigration? How are we going to deal with all these, overbearing regulations and the whole deal, and, root out the corruption in DC, drain the swamp, the whole deal? Like, he was actually talking about the issues that we were all concerned about, but our Republican leaders would not talk about. Like you would have the typical Republican that would come out and here's my 68-point plan to deal with illegal immigration. And Trump's like, okay, we're going to build a wall and deport the illegals. Okay, there you go. There's your plan. Let's move on. Like, I felt like he kind of cut through the crap, so to say. But when it comes to right now, I think that you make a really good point here, which is that, I would say probably more Trump supporters and Trump influencers than Trump, but even Trump himself, I think what they're doing is they're making the personal attacks and the slanders and the smears and all of that, as opposed to actually talking about what are we actually concerned about. And those attacks may play to your base. It may play to the MAGA crowd. It's not going to bring you new voters. There's going to be a lot of people that see, okay, well, look, I don't like Kamala Harris, but I don't want to be associated with all these smears and these attacks and bringing up dirt from people's backgrounds. And okay, did she sleep with Willie Brown? Did she do it for political expediency, or did she do it, for what reason? Why are we even diving into that? It's not like Trump has this perfect background either. And so it's like when we're looking at this, it's like, why are we going down this route as opposed to talking about Kamala Harris is horrific as a politician. Her record is horrific.
Yes.
Why are we talking about her and Willie Brown?
Yeah, I mean, it's such low-hanging fruit. And to be fair, RFK Jr. has some suspect things as well. But again, they all do. Bill Clinton. I mean, how many examples? JFK Jr. I mean, how many examples do we have to give about people's poor personal decisions? It's just so much better and easier to stand policy. And I'll tell you, Jeff, that it's been enlightening to try and approach people more open-minded and not so threatening and not digging your heels and stuff. Like, for example, I know I have a different political leaning than my hairdresser. And it's been interesting to see her journey throughout this whole thing. She was very adamant about taking the jab. And then she got jab injured. And so that had her starting to question anything. She was coming to me with a lot of questions. And then I just saw her recently and she was like, as someone who's just frustrated with like both sides and I kind of don't know what to do, where I want to put my loyalty, she said, what I'm most frustrated about is that we can't just talk about policy. She's like, I'm so sick of all of this stupid like arguing and everything about character. She's like, I don't want to hear character attacks on Trump. I don't want to hear character. She's like, I just want to hear about what are you going to do for me? And I just think it's so good to have those conversations with people that are undecided and have been even pushed into being undecided because of the lying and the gaslighting that they have experienced. We need to capitalize that and just shoot straight and talk policy, right?
No, I totally agree, and I think that there's a growing sense of that same mentality. When you look at, there was a recent poll that came out that I guess 51% of Americans now self-identify as independent and not a part of either party. And now, it's different than necessarily how they actually register to vote, but when it comes to how they identify themselves, they're identifying as more independent and less partisan. And I think it's for that very reason. They're sick of the extreme polarization, they're sick of the attacks and all of that. And it's been interesting. I live out here in communist California, and I talk to a lot of people. It was almost impossible for me to convince somebody who was kind of center to center left to make the leap and vote for Donald Trump. But I'm getting people almost every day that are coming over and pulling me aside and going, Jeff, you know what? I've been listening to you. I'm going to vote for RFK this time. And it's really interesting because I'm even getting a lot of Republicans that they're saying if RFK keeps rising in the polls, they're going to make the leap from Donald Trump over to RFK Jr. And for me, I think that looking at this, I think that there is an interesting dynamic when it comes to even former Trump supporters that are coming over to RFK. I've been diving into Trump's Agenda 47, which I think in general is quite positive and quite good. But I think that Trump and his team are missing something in their Agenda 47 that I think is actually beginning to resonate with people, and people are starting to recognize is that what Trump is doing with Agenda 47 is he's attacking the symptoms of the problem like no other. And I think that if Donald Trump gets elected, and my wife and I have talked about this, if Trump gets elected, we'll go to sleep happy at night knowing that the country's going to head in a much better direction than it is right now or under Kamala Harris. But it'll give us 4 years of a good America. And then what happens? Well, we fix all the symptoms of the problems, but we're not getting down to the root problems. The root problems that I think that the vast majority of the issues that we're facing right now are the corporate capture of the regulating agencies and our government and our politicians and the mainstream media, as well as the rogue deep state intelligence agencies and the military industrial complex. Those issues are the root issues that we have to fix. And I do not believe that Donald Trump has the wherewithal, the understanding, or the ability to actually get in there and fix those root issues. He may fix the symptoms of the problem, but he's not going to fix the root problems like RFK Jr. is talking about. If you look at almost everything that he's talking about how do we fix these structurally? How do we fix these root problems? Because if you fix the root problems, you're going to have the symptoms go away. But if all you do is attack the symptoms, you have new symptoms pop up all over the place.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know that you have faced some backlash because of, you were a Trump supporter and now you've switched your loyalty to what some would be like, well, at the end of the day, he's a Democrat and he's for abortion, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, what I want to encourage people to do is you can still be a Trump supporter, you can be a ride or die, and you can still listen and still at least know where RFK Jr. is coming from, because any vote that is away from Kamala is a vote away from Kamala. I mean, and I think that's the point that we all agree on, is that we cannot allow these people to stay in power or we lose our country. And so there are people, even if you're a ride or die Trump person, there are people that will never, ever, ever vote for Trump. And so if you can reach them and at least get them to switch their vote from Kamala to RFK Jr., then you better start listening to RFK Jr.'s policies and seeing if that's something that you can more align with to bring someone over to that side. That being said, that is one of the pushbacks that you're going to get. Well, if I go ahead and vote for RFK Jr., is that going to increase the chances that we're going to get stuck with Kamala? That I think is one of the biggest fears of casting a vote for RFK Jr. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. For me, one of them is I've been begging the Trump crowd to actually start listening to a lot of the RFK positions and say, like, look, understand why a lot of us are leaving Trump or leaving the Democrat Party and supporting RFK, and then speak to those issues instead of trying to bash us over the head and try to convince us by manipulation or bullying tactics or whatever it is. So there's that side of thing. But when you actually look at the data and you actually look at the statistics, between Donald Trump, who's typically polling at like 45%-ish or so, RFK, in one of the latest polls where they're actually properly weighting independents versus Democrats versus Republicans, he was coming in at about 20 to 22% in the ballot. So between those two, you're looking at about 65% of Americans supporting and voters supporting either Donald Trump or RFK Jr. That only leaves 35, 40% left over for Democrats. I don't see no matter who the Democrat nominee is, them even having a chance of winning as long as the two candidates are in there. Now, when you take RFK out of the mix and you look at the polling that are just head-to-head matchups between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, it's almost neck and neck. And a lot of times it's like 44 to 46, 43 to 45, somewhere along those lines. And so when you actually look at it, if it was a one-on-one matchup, Donald Trump would have a much harder time because RFK is pulling a lot of those Democrat votes away from Kamala Harris. However, with RFK in the mix, it actually ensures us that we do not have a Democrat nominee. Then it becomes, okay, so are you gonna vote for Donald Trump? Are you gonna vote for RFK? That's where, in my opinion, you vote your conscience. Who do you think would be better for the job? But as long as we look at it from that perspective, if Kamala Harris can only get 30 to 35% of the vote, then we're not going to have Kamala Harris as president of the United States.
Well, I definitely think that Trump's near-death experience did bring even some RFK Jr. Supporters over to his side. I mean, it was a sight to see. I mean, it was chilling to watch. I know that you were even affected by it. But I will say that, you know, the part of me that wants to see Trump get another chance because his first chance was so sabotaged. You know, I think the same thing about RFK Jr. What the deep state has done to his family. I feel like that would also be a great redemption story. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at as far as that goes. You know, either one, that gives me hope. Just the hatred that just the way the media ignores RFK Jr., the way they had this incredible opportunity after Biden was finally willing to step out. They could have given him another opportunity, RFK Jr., to go against Trump, which would have increased their odds, but they would not give him that or even entertain it. That gives me some hope that RFK Jr. is one of the good guys. If the deep state, if the establishment hates him that much, you know.
Right. No, it's a very good point. And the thing is, too, is like when you actually look at it, this election is actually between either current or former Democrats, between Donald Trump, RFK Jr., and Kamala Harris. So, I mean, pretty much everybody has been a Democrat at some point in their life. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, it's definitely a very interesting story. But also, I think for me, I look at this very interesting when it comes to RFK. Everybody always keeps telling me, Jeff, you're throwing away your vote. Jeff, you're throwing away your vote. Okay, well, here, this is how I always rebut this, is that right now, RFK Jr., if you're looking at the right polls, he's polling at about 20%. The vast majority of the polls that are showing him in single digits, they underweight the independent vote. So they'll maybe only ask 6% or 8% of people that they're polling that are independents. Everybody else is Republican, Democrat. It's weighted weird. But when you look at things that are divvied up properly, proportionately, RFK's polling at about 20%. That is, he has not even truly begun to campaign yet. And here's why. Number one, he's had to shell out $1 million a month for security. He just got Secret Service protection. So all of his money has either gone to security or getting on the ballots. In a matter of about 2 weeks, they're going to be on every single ballot in every single state, in all 50 states. And a lot of that has to do with deadlines and approval process when it comes to each individual state. So now they're not having to shell out money for security. They're not having to spend all their money on getting on the ballots. Now is when the real campaign begins. Right now, he's winning in the under 45 range. He's beating both Trump and Kamala Harris in the under 45 range. And a lot of that's because he's been going on the podcast and he's been interviewed by people like Bill Maher, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, all that. And people resonate and they're like, oh yeah, this guy actually makes sense of what he's saying. Now that he's going to actually have money to campaign, that now is when he starts going after the boomers. Now is when he starts going to the over 45 range. And I think that he can make a lot of headway, especially if he can get on the debate stage. I think it's a completely wide open race right now heading forward because of the fact he's at 20%, the most successful third-party candidate in my lifetime. He's polling that high, and he truly hasn't even begun campaigning yet. I think that we're going to see a whole bunch of change in the coming months heading into the election.
Well, I think there's plenty of us, again, even if you are a hardcore Trump supporter, that can agree that we are sick and tired of the Uniparty. And, you know, so it would be nice to have something to break that up and finally bring an end to that. That being said, as you said, we're months away. Just as a final question to wrap everything up, you know, they're going to come down hard again on keeping the truth from people. They're already gaslighting people. I'm sure they'll try and do more censorship and everything. You have this alternative. Tell me about that alternative that you have before we go.
Yeah, sure. So I've been actually building out a new what we're calling a social content platform or social media platform called Pickaxe. We've been building it out for about a year and a half now. I was just talking with my tech team. We're going to be launching our beta launch hopefully over the weekend. So in the next couple of days, we're going to be doing our beta launch. So it's going to be a completely constitutionally protected free speech social media platform. And so you're gonna have access to that. We're not beholden to big tech, and so we're gonna be a web-based app, so that way we're not dealing with the app stores and having to censor and all that. If you're on a social media platform that is in either the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, they are by definition not a free speech platform because they have to censor according to the rules. So we're bypassing that, and then we're also offering monetization opportunities for content creators, unlike anything that is out there. We're building out this platform. I can almost guarantee it's gonna take off. I've been talking to a lot of people on a lot of different social media platforms from a lot of different political backgrounds, industries, and all of that. They're going to be coming over because of our unique monetization opportunities and the ability that if you have an audience, we are going to give you so many tools in order to engage with your audience in ways that the algorithms on other platforms will not allow you to have. So if you guys want to go be a part of our beta launch, you guys can go to pickaxe.com, sign up today, and then I'm going to be sending out an email probably in the next 24 to 48 hours welcoming you to the platform, and you guys can set up your profile, and we'll be heading full steam ahead on our beta launch. So really excited for that.
Yeah, well, make sure, folks, that you get a head start on that. Go to pickaxe.com because, X isn't even as free speech as we'd like it to be, but that would be a whole nother conversation. So I'm going to have you back on to dig into that a little bit more when it comes to Elon Musk and X and all that. But again, just sign up at pickaxe.com. And Jeff, thank you for just being authentic and, like it or not, this is where you're at, and you're encouraging others to look a little bit deeper as well. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you're always exposing the truth. You're always open to the conversation and the engagement. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right. We are going to be trying to connect with Kyle Kemper. You may have seen the RFK Jr. bus riding around all over at these events, even outside of the RNC. Well, he's the man behind that. He also happens to be Justin Trudeau's brother. So we're going to be talking to him. But I do want to remind you that, you should be prepared for anything. It's been such a wild and crazy couple weeks. I can't even hit all of the news I would like to. It's just I can't even keep up. So you have to be prepared for anything. One thing that you can do is you can get yourself a prepper bar. This is in a nice protective casing right now, but basically this is a full silver bar that you can keep in your wallet. You can go to thekristibar.com, thekristibar.com. It comes in both gold or silver. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a price discrepancy between silver or gold, but either way, get yourself something in case of a worst case scenario that you have something of value that you can barter with. It has those ridges for the purpose of being able to basically break off pieces of silver and use it for barter. So make sure you have that. You can also keep this in your retirement account. Another easier way to have something in your retirement account that is tangible assets, precious metals that have held the test of time, is to go to getklgold.com, getklgold.com. And please, when you're doing your research about diversifying your portfolio, make sure you can go with it you can trust. There's a lot of not so great ones out there that promise the moon and then you end up disappointed. So I trust Genesis Gold. You can access your ability to get a free evaluation by going to getklgold.com, getklgold.com. Watch this. Get free with Kristi Lee, and that includes getting free from tying up all your money in the banks we can no longer trust.
Greed works.
The market, which can face manipulation, and getting ahead of any central bank digital currency schemes that might be headed our way. In times of uncertainty, the wisdom of diversifying with gold and silver shines brighter than ever. Genesis Gold Group offers a path to invest in these precious metals, echoing the biblical principles of wisdom and preparation. So go to getklgold.com to get your free gold and silver guide and get started. That's getklgold.com.
Tell me what it takes to get you feeling alive. Tell me how to show you it's a beautiful life. I'll do anything to pull you into the light, 'cause everything will change when you open your eyes. Yeah. So don't you let the sunlight go by the
I don't think you can watch that and not smile. It's such a fun-loving video. The bus there. The RFK Jr. campaign has what might seem like an unlikely advocate there. Justin Trudeau has been described as a dictator, yet his brother Kyle is a fierce defender of freedom and thinks America has the best chance at preserving freedom with RFK Jr. So he's been an advocate from the beginning for him to be president. He joins us now to discuss. Kyle, you're on the road as we speak, right? Well, maybe not driving right now, but you get what I mean.
Now, we've paused for a minute. We're here in Nashville. Bobby's about to speak tomorrow night at the Bitcoin conference, which is the largest kind of gathering of Bitcoiners looking at decentralization in the world. And we just rolled in yesterday, and we've been on a almost a 2-month tour now, all across America. Well, really, it's almost been a year since we activated the bus and started driving all around. But the last 2 months have been kind of full on, and it's really incredible driving around and meeting people where they're at. And I'll say, like, the vibration is definitely rising, the awareness is rising, and it seems like, you know, the spirit is there.
Yeah, and I feel uncomfortable and hate bringing this up, but it's fascinating to our audience and to me that you are Justin Trudeau's brother, because you're so diametrically opposed to like his viewpoints. He's been a very, very authoritarian in his viewpoints, and you've been for medical freedom, and now you're an advocate for RFK Jr. And so tell me, how did that, have you always had differing opinions when it comes to that? And how did you get hooked up with the RFK Jr. campaign?
Yeah, so I mean, Justin's kind of made his own decisions, and I'm not going to, like, you know, delve too much into them. I do not agree with a lot of the actions that he's taken. I don't feel like he's really, you know, making the decisions. I'm sure that resonates with your audience as well. And in terms of how I saw Bobby, well, Bobby during the whole COVID scenario stood up, spoke out, warned about you know, the dangers of the vaccines, etc. And I remember watching a video of him last February and being like, my gosh, this guy is actually qualified to be president, like really truly qualified, like, you know, he would be an amazing president. And when he declared that he was going to be running for president, it was actually at the same time I met you at the Independent National Convention. And you know, after that, I thought to myself and, you know, reflected and talked to the family and was like, it looks like this is our kind of our best chance. So basically for the last almost year and a half, we've been, you know, seriously supporting and campaigning and raising awareness for Bobby the Remedy Kennedy.
Yeah, and it's been really disgusting how legacy media, and even in some corners of conservative media, they've just kind of really outright ignored RFK Jr. as a candidate. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is, and it might bring some hate my way, but I'm committed to making sure that all voices are heard, as any journalist should be, that all voices should be heard. And his has been effectively muted by the media. And so I want to elevate that and at least bring some balance and fairness to the conversation, so we can get to the truth and get the best path at saving America. That's something we should all be in agreement about. But I do love that there's been some campaign creativity, and I wanted to just show you 30 seconds of this clip showing different ways the RFK Jr. is trying to get his word out there. Watch this.
Crack open a cookie, pull out a fortune, and you might get advice, good luck, or maybe a political ad.
And I was like, guys, it's not a fortune cookie. Have you ever seen that before? That's not normal, right?
Dominic Prevey ordered Chinese food from his normal spot in Manchester last week, but he got a surprise. Inside his fortune was an ad for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Independent Party presidential campaign.
And my fortune happened to be, how much will you save with RFK Jr. as president? That's what it said in the fortune. And I looked to my friend like, guys, you'll never believe what my fortune was.
According to staff at several Chinese restaurants across the state, a couple months ago they got a call from a vendor asking if they wanted a few free boxes of fortune cookies. Many of them said yes.
I have never seen political advertising on a fortune cookie. I was very surprised.
All the restaurants said they weren't sure who the caller was, and because it wasn't clear as to who was behind the ad, we went looking. On the plastic wrap, it reads that Winfar Foods in Chicago was the maker. We tracked down the general manager who said he distributed the cookies through the group Open Fortune. They told us they'd worked with the RFK team to make 100,000 fortune cookies targeted to New Hampshire.
It's a very unusual way of reaching voters. Most messaging towards voters is aimed at getting a really broad audience. You think about TV advertising, billboards, that sort of thing.
The RFK campaign confirmed to WMUR that they made these cookies, something reminiscent of what his father had done in 1968. They said they, quote, embraced the unconventional approach to connect with voters nationwide, leveraging the universal appeal of fortune cookies.
New Hampshire is something of a swing state. So I think, the Kennedy campaign probably feels like there's a chance that they can have more of an influence here.
Dominic said it got him thinking.
And it made me aware of RFK Jr. a little bit more. So I guess that's all it needs to do, right?
In Manchester, Ariel Metropolis, WMUR News 9.
So I saw that you saw that as well. What are some other, obviously the bus is creative as well as far as a campaign tool. So what kind of reception are you getting out there in the real world? Like I said, in media and social media, he's kind of being ignored, but what are you seeing out there in the real world?
In the real world, it's so fascinating to see people from all sides, like really resonating, to see everybody kind of coming up to the bus. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of heart. We've been engaging with, volunteers, county leads, state leads, regional leads, organizing parades, sign making, doing all sorts of different things. And amongst the conservatives, there's a lot of, genuine interest and support. Amongst a lot of the traditional liberals as well, there's a lot of support. It's these kind of these almost, I'll say, these hypnotized new Democrats, if you will, that don't like it. Those who seek vaccine mandates and seek more authoritarianism, they don't resonate too well. Generally, the only people that are really negative to us tend to be, late age Democrats, and they seem to be able to give the middle finger to children and myself, which is really it's not a good look.
No, it's
but I will
definitely
say,
not.
we were just at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and if Bobby takes the White House and wins the election, I don't think anybody there, well, there'll be some people, but I think by and large, people will be happy. Because I think there's a lot of respect amongst the RNC. There was, I would say most people there wanted Bobby to be Trump's VP. And I think him sticking with the independence route, plus I don't think Trump actually was able to make that call, because as great as Donald Trump is, I don't believe that he is fully in control of his ship.
That being said, it has been encouraging to see the unity. The phone call, I know that phone call wasn't supposed to be leaked, but there was nothing bad about the phone call between him and Trump. It sounds like there will be unity, really, if either of them gets it. But it sounds like if Trump is elected president, that I'm pretty confident he would have a place for RFK Jr. Somewhere in his in his administration. And so it's interesting that the Democrats talk about now's the time to unite and we have to stop division and everything. But you don't see that with RFK Jr. You don't see them bringing him in anywhere at all under their wing or giving him any credibility. But I do think that, as you said, the RNC, Donald Trump, they've been pretty kind to him, and likewise, right?
Yeah, it really feels like the Democratic Party and the DNC, they're just they just project. They call everybody else racist when they themselves, tend to be the most racist. They say they want to protect democracy while actively working to keep Bobby off the ballot and try and put Trump in jail, so there's no choice. There was effectively a coup d'etat with what happened with Biden dropping out. Bobby tried to run in the primaries, but it was very clear that the game is rigged within the Democratic Party. It's not democratic. It's not, it's not of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's of the party, by the party, and for the party. And it's a stain. And Bobby, wanted to come back in and help and restore integrity to that, but it doesn't look like that's happening. And honestly, I think all Americans can agree that the two-party system is no longer benefiting America. And a lot of people have this sense that, well, voting for RFK would be like a spoiler. Wrong. Voting for RFK is the underdog. Any vote other than RFK is actually the spoiler vote, because you're just going to vote for the same uniparty system. While they pretend to be different and there's different talking points, there's a little bit more energy, at the end of the day, they represent the same interest. They still play the divide and conquer game, the hate one another game, and it's a lame game. Instead, why don't we choose to make talking great again and bring people together again and start actually having open, honest discussions, with a level head around solutions, as opposed to playing this highly polarized, ridiculous game of politics that the uniparty, that the duopoly sets up. This is our chance. Kenny24.com.
Yeah, and to that end, the one of the main things in focus right now is Kamala and whether or not she was named as border czar. Either way, the border's in shambles. That's obviously something that we can all agree needs to be addressed. People really want to see a show of force when it comes to protecting our country. Are you confident RFK Jr. will buckle down on that enough?
I think Bobby has been to the border multiple times. Nicole Shanahan has also been to the border multiple times. He made a whole documentary called Midnight at the Border, where he went and interviewed everybody who was coming through, and he's worked with law enforcement and the agencies. And I think he has an actual depth and breadth of knowledge around the solutions to it. Like, he personally understands the challenges and the remedies to these systemic issues. So yes, I'm very confident that Bobby can bring solutions towards a hideous, porous, dangerous border solution that has been created by a lack of good policy.
What happened with the pandemic really changed it changed everyone's lives to some degree, and it really opened a lot of eyes, and RFK Jr. has been speaking out against what I've been calling the death jab, essentially, as well as overall jab safety, because that has been lacking. How realistic is it that a president can actually make market change when it comes to medical freedom and medical safety? Because that is, I think, a mark against Trump, that he hasn't been vocal enough about what a mistake it was to trust people like Dr. Fauci, what a mistake it was to brag about Operation Warp Speed. And so I would say that that's a win in RFK Jr.'s category, that he's been speaking up more about this. But how realistic is it that you think he could make effective change when it comes to that?
I mean, as Maud Flanders said in The Simpsons, think of the children. Will somebody think of the children? And Donald Trump's actions, by following, these swamp creatures and these profiteers, and rolling out the most dangerous mass injection campaign of children, of youth, of young adults, of seniors, of extreme seniors, was reckless and extremely dangerous. And Bobby wrote the book, The Real Anthony Fauci, represents extreme qualifications, and also how to unwind the corporate capture of these agencies, because they are completely captured. And Trump wanted to have Bobby on his vaccine safety commission until Bobby showed up in the room. And then it was like, oh, actually, you know what? You're not going to continue in this role. So, he allegedly had tried before, but I don't think we should even give him another chance. I think it's time for America to redeclare its independence and elect the first independent president since George Washington, who was the first president. It's about darn time.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a joke. The Democrats are no longer Democrats. They're just pure socialists and authoritarians at this point, to the point that it is quite
Fascists, too.
astonishing. Yeah, fascist.
It's like,
I mean, it
fascist, like, you know, trifecta. And it's and it has no regard for the will of the people. It views, you know, it's almost like a Hunger Games style approach towards management. It really is, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they talk about the voice of the people and how important it is for democracy. We have to save democracy. People should have a voice. But I mean, the levels they've gone to remove choice is astonishing. Obviously, with this coup in play, but before that, there were efforts to take Donald Trump off the ballot, and then there's obviously been efforts to keep RFK Jr. off of the ballot, to the point that the DNC even has lawsuits. They've used lawfare to keep him off the ballot. I mean, that to me like blows my mind that not only would they like say mean things, if you will, and disparage him, but they would bring lawsuits to keep him an independent from being on the ballot. Like, so do the people's voice matter? Do you really want democracy or not? Because that sends a strong message that you want people to have less choices, not more choices, right?
We want people to have choice. And what the Democrats have done at every step is try to remove that. So, you know, it's time for those who have leaned left to release themselves from this spell that the Democrats hold over them. And, you know, and honestly, I'm not telling you who to vote for. I say listen to all the candidates. Use your eyes to see, use your ears to listen, and use your mind to think for yourself. And you make up your mind. Don't trust what you see on the television. It's called television for a reason, and it comes from the programs and the channels on the television. Just be aware of the content, the subjective narrative, and don't let people take your power away from you by like engaging you in a hate relationship with these other groups. The best thing you can do if someone is abusing you is to remove yourself from that relationship. So, America, you have been abused by the powers that be, by this two-party system. There is now an option. We're calling you to get involved, to participate in this modern acceptance movement. It's not a resistance. This is accepting liberty, accepting freedom, accepting the will of we the people back into the collective governance structure. So you're invited, KRISTI. And all of you.
Well, thank you. I'm like, I don't even want to say anything beyond that because that was so well said. Very, very convincing, Kyle. You know, you just have a beautiful soul. I love your beautiful family. I love that both of us are trying to repopulate the earth one baby at a time. So we can fight the globalists. So no, I appreciate you so much. And so you're going to be in Nashville at the Bitcoin conference. And how long does that go on?
We're going to be in Nashville through Saturday. So Bobby's speaking tomorrow. And then I think Trump's going to be speaking on Saturday too. So it should be very exciting around here. And then I think we're going to drive to Mississippi and go help with some ballot access down there and attend one of the state's largest fairs. And then kind of keep hitting the road. If you want to stay in touch with the tour, go on Instagram. It's at Kennedy24bus. We also have a Patreon set up. It's patreon.com/KennedyBus, where you can help support by a couple of gallons of gas if you like. Help keep this party rolling.
I love that. Yeah, let's all come together and keep a true democracy, keep a true republic going, and help you out with more choices, not less. Thank you, Kyle, so much, and I'll let you get back to your beautiful family and the conference. And make sure you say hi to Kyle if you're out there, folks.
Indeed. And one last thing, KRISTI, it's so Bobby did just release his whole America Strong platform as well. And one of the things that gets me kind of most excited about it is he's actually talking about governance reform and a need for direct democracy. And this is how we fix things. Our system is broken. This representative democracy where you have representatives representing geographical regions coming together to make decisions on your behalf is a product of a pre-electricity, pre-internet, pre-high-speed travel time in humanity. The conditions have changed. It's time for us to look at new systems towards having positive, engaged discussions and real solutions that benefit we the people, not we the corporation. Thank you, Kristi. God bless you. Have a great day. Thanks everybody for your attention. Wishing you all the best. RFK all the way. Have a great day. Woo!
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. We'll let him get back to his tour bus and all the fun he's having. All right. So, please support him in his efforts. Again, whether you're a ride or die Trump supporter or not, I think it's we actually have some common ground with the RFK Jr. supporters, and I think that if these two camps unite, then the most important thing is that we do not let the true enemy of America in any way, shape, or form win. And so if you can't convince someone to support Donald Trump, well, you have another option, maybe not your first choice, but maybe somebody that they would be more open to. And so every vote away from from Kamala or whoever they decide to put in there, because who knows what's going to happen between now and November, is a vote to trying saving America. So please support what he's doing, and then please support this show, because here I am, one of, I think, few that is willing to have this conversation, is willing to give a lot of airtime to the RFK Jr. camp, because I think it's important to have balance and fairness. And I try and do what the legacy media is not doing, and they're certainly not giving him a voice or paying attention to him at all. So that was my purpose today, is I wanted to dedicate a whole show to at least giving him a voice, or giving what he's doing a platform. That being said, please support this show. Please support Frank's Speech, the network that allows me to have this show. One way you can do that is by supporting Mike Lindell, who gave us this option. You can do that by going to mypillow.com/KL, mypillow.com/KL. You can use promo code KL and get some fantastic deals, the best deals there. I love the towels. I have a comforter and duvet set. I mean, they have so much. If you haven't been to mypillow.com, check it out. They have so much to offer. They have sandals, they have robes, they have pajamas. I mean, my goodness, you can get a lot of great stuff, and it helps support Mike Lindell, who's been targeted and persecuted. It helps support this network, and it helps support this show. So please do that. Support him in the network. And also, I want to make sure that I share the scripture of the day, really simple one to keep in mind, especially on a polarizing topic, I would say. And it's John 13:34. A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. So there you go. Keep that in mind as you have these conversations, as you try and extend the olive branch and reach people where they're at. Just remember to speak truth in love. And that's the command, love one another. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to tell people about Get Free with KRISTI Leigh, now on frankspeech.com, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Three years ago, frankspeech.com was launched during the height of mass media censorship to give voices back to those who had their voices silenced. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new era, covering the most important presidential election in American history. An era defined by the battle for some of our most fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, and secure elections. We at Frank Speech refuse to be silenced. We refuse to bow down to the forces that seek to dictate what we can and cannot say. We are the media now. Join us in this fight at frankspeech.com.
You might not want to hear what we're saying, but we're going to say it.